I parked outside the hotel, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My gut told me I'd see something I didn't want to, but I had to know. The valet approached, expecting me to hand over the keys, but I waved him off and stepped out. My heart pounded as I walked through the glass doors, the warmth of the lobby contrasting with the cold dread creeping up my spine. Laughter and music spilled from the ballroom down the hall. A group of employees lingered near the entrance, holding drinks and exchanging stories. I scanned their faces, searching for Melissa. Then, through the sea of bodies, I spotted her. She stood near the bar, close, to Ryan. The way he leaned in, whispering something that made her giggle, sent a surge of anger through me. My fists clenched at my sides as I watched her place a hand on his arm, her fingers tracing lazy circles on his sleeve. This wasn't just office camaraderie. This was intimate, familiar. I took a step forward, then stopped. A confrontation here, in front of her colleagues, would give her an excuse. We were just talking, or you're overreacting. No, I needed more. Something undeniable. Pulling out my phone, I discreetly hit record. Ryan lifted his drink, clinking his glass against hers. "To us," he said, his voice just loud enough to be caught in the video. Melissa smirked. "To tonight." Their drinks met with a soft clink, and something inside me shattered. I forced myself to stay calm, watching as Ryan's hand brushed against her waist. She didn't flinch, didn't push him away. Instead, she leaned in, lips grazing his ear as she whispered something back. My breath hitched. Then, as if the universe wanted to hammer the final nail into my faith, Ryan's arm wrapped around her lower back, pulling her into him. She allowed it. No hesitation. No guilt. The video kept rolling. Melissa turned her head slightly, her lips inches from his. I ended the recording and slipped my phone into my pocket. That was all I needed, but I couldn't leave. Not yet. I needed to see just how far she would go, so I stayed watching the woman I thought I knew betray me, one touch at a time. Melissa's face twisted with panic as she hurriedly stepped out into the hallway, shutting the hotel room door behind her, as if that would somehow erase what had just happened inside. She clutched the fabric of her dress, chest rising and falling rapidly, guilt smeared across her features. "It's not what you think," she blurted out, voice barely above a whisper. Her breath reeked of alcohol and desperation. I let out a bitter laugh, pulling out my phone and playing the video. Her body pressed against Ryan's, the way she touched him, the way she leaned in like she belonged to him, the way she looked at him like I never existed. Melissa's eyes darted between the screen and my face. The hotel door creaked open. Ryan stepped out, his shirt partially unbuttoned, lips slightly swollen, hair tousled as if my wife had just run her fingers through it. He froze when he saw me, his expression shifting from shock to something close to fear. I took a step forward, muscles coiled, rage bubbling beneath my skin. "You enjoy screwing another man's wife?" My voice was low, dangerous. Ryan hesitated, then raised his hands. "I didn't know she was married," he lied. His eyes flickered to Melissa, who was now trembling beside me. I scoffed. "Bullshit." My fists clenched. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to wipe that smug, guilty look off his face. Melissa grabbed my arm. "Please, let's just go home and talk about this." Her touch, once comforting, now felt like acid against my skin. I shook her off. "Talk? You mean lie? Like you've been doing all night?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Look, man, I didn't mean to cause any trouble." The moment he opened his mouth again, my self-control snapped. I grabbed his collar and shoved him against the hallway wall. His back hit with a dull thud, eyes wide with shock. "You think this is a joke?" My voice shook with restrained fury. Melissa screamed, grabbing my arm, trying to pry me off him. "Stop, please." Ryan swallowed hard. A hotel manager appeared at the end of the hallway, flanked by two security guards. Their hurried footsteps echoed against the marble floors. "Sir, you need to step back," one of them ordered. With one last glare, I released Ryan, shoving him away. He stumbled slightly, but quickly regained his footing. I turned to Melissa, whose mascara-streaked face looked utterly pathetic. "You threw everything away for this?" My voice dripped with contempt. She sobbed. "It wasn't supposed to happen." I laughed bitterly. But it did. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my phone and, with a few taps, sent the damning video to her family, her closest friends, and our mutual contacts. Melissa's phone buzzed a second later. She checked it, and when realization dawned, her face drained of color. "No," she choked out, looking up at me with pure terror. "What did you do?" I stepped back, shaking my head. "I gave them the truth, something you never could." Turning away, I walked toward the elevator, leaving her standing there in the wreckage of her own betrayal. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped inside without looking back. As they began to close, I heard Melissa's frantic footsteps pounding against the marble floors. "Wait, please," she cried, but I didn't stop. Her face appeared between the narrowing gap just before the doors sealed shut. The last thing I saw was the sheer terror in her eyes, realization finally sinking in. She had ruined everything. The ride down felt agonizingly slow. My heart pounded, my hands trembled with leftover adrenaline. I had never imagined my marriage would end like this, disgracefully in the dim hallway of a hotel, with my wife barely dressed and another man scrambling to fix his shirt behind her. As the elevator dinged at the lobby, I stepped out into the cool, polished floor of the hotel entrance. The valet approached hesitantly. "Sir, do you need your car?" I nodded wordlessly. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I knew who it was before even looking. "Melissa." I ignored the call. Another buzz, another message. "Melissa. Baby, please, don't do this. Just come home. Let's talk." I exhaled through my nose, clenching my jaw so hard it hurt. Talk? The time for talking had passed the moment she let Ryan's hands explore what was mine. My car pulled up. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. My phone vibrated again, but this time it wasn't Melissa. Her mother. I let it go to voicemail. The hotel lights blurred in my rearview mirror as I sped away. The streets stretched endlessly before me, each red light a painful moment of clarity. I had spent years loving a woman who had thrown it all away for a cheap thrill. By the time I reached our house, my rage had settled into something colder, something sharper. I pulled into the driveway, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our shared accounts, bank statements, and bills. I still had control over everything. A cruel smirk tugged at my lips. Melissa had made her choice. Now she would face the consequences. I accessed our joint account and, without hesitation, transferred every dollar into my private account. She would wake up tomorrow with nothing. A sharp knock on the car window startled me. Melissa stood outside, her face streaked with tears, mascara smudged beneath her red, swollen eyes. She must have taken a cab home. "Open the door," she begged. I stared at her, unblinking. "Please," she sobbed, hands pressed against the glass. "I swear it didn't mean anything." I rolled the window down an inch, just enough to let my voice slip through. "Go inside, Melissa." My tone was devoid of emotion. She shook her head violently. "No, not until you let me explain." I laughed dryly. "Explain what? How you let another man touch you? How you let him undress you in a hotel room while I sat at home like an idiot?" Melissa flinched as if I had slapped her. "I was drunk. I made a mistake." "You made a choice." My grip on the steering wheel tightened. Her lip quivered. "I love you." For the first time in years, I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative liar. "No, you love the comfort I gave you," I corrected. "You love that I provided, that I took care of you. But you didn't love me." Melissa let out a broken sob, her shoulders shaking. "Please, don't leave me." I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Then, in a voice so cold it didn't sound like my own, I said, "I already did." Rolling the window back up, I pulled out of the driveway, leaving her standing there under the dim glow of the porch light, exactly where she belonged, alone. Melissa's sobs faded into the night as I drove away, my mind oddly clear. For the first time in years, I felt weightless, untethered from the lies, the betrayals, the suffocating illusion of a happy marriage. She had destroyed us the moment she let Ryan touch her, and now she was left with nothing but regret. I didn't look back. Instead, I drove with purpose, navigating the quiet streets until I reached a destination I hadn't planned. My best friend Eric's house. He was the one person I trusted, the one who had always warned me about Melissa's late nights, the subtle shifts in her behavior. I had ignored his concerns before, but now I saw how blind I had been. The porch light flickered on as I approached. Moments later, Eric opened the door, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Damn, man," he muttered, taking in my expression. "It's bad, isn't it?" I let out a breathless chuckle. "Worse than bad." He stepped aside, waving me in. "Come on, you look like you need a drink." I entered, sinking onto his worn-out couch as he disappeared into the kitchen. When he returned, he handed me a glass of whiskey. The burn of the alcohol grounded me, reminding me that I was still here, still standing. "So, what happened?" Eric asked, leaning back in his chair. I took out my phone and played the video, watching as his expression darkened with every passing second. When it ended, he let out a low whistle. "Damn," he muttered, "she really did you dirty." I nodded, swirling the whiskey in my glass. "She begged me to stay, swore she loved me." Eric scoffed. "Love? That's not love, that's panic. She's not sorry for what she did. She's sorry she got caught." I exhaled slowly, realizing how true that was. Melissa hadn't shed a single tear for me before tonight. Only when she realized the cost of her betrayal did she start pleading. Eric leaned forward. "So, what now?" A slow smile spread across my lips. "Now? I move on." And I did. In the days that followed, I cut every tie to Melissa. I filed for divorce immediately, making sure she got nothing. She called, texted, even showed up at my work, but I ignored every desperate attempt. She had made her bed, now she had to lie in it. As for me, I embraced my newfound freedom. The pain of her betrayal dulled with time, replaced by something far sweeter: peace. Months later, I met someone new, someone real. She didn't play games, didn't lie, didn't take me for granted. With her, I rediscovered what it meant to love and be loved in return. One evening, as we sat on a quiet beach, her fingers entwined with mine, I realized that Melissa's betrayal was the best thing that had ever happened to me, because it led me here, to something better, to someone who truly deserved me.